afternoon, all you awesome people out there. My name is Scott Schertzen, alongside Mr. Obie Spencer, Mr. Brandon Kaye, and of course, Mr. J.D. Walker. And welcome to the Sports Den on Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly remember to download the Zingo TV app on the iOS and Android devices at the app stores, respectively. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all 2016 and forward smart TVs. Gentlemen, we got a lot we're going to talk about. I know you guys hardcore have a lot you want to go into when it comes to Mr. Ben Simmons and his contribution to the now basically out of the playoffs Brooklyn Nets. We're going to be talking a little bit about the 76ers. We're going to be talking a little NFL draft. And should we happen to get to it, we can probably talk a little bit about the Mets and why the Mets far and away are the most interesting team in New York, part and parcel because of the fact that they do not have fans that are throwing things at opposing players. But gentlemen,
that ninth inning last night,
or managers that are complete cowards who would intentionally walk a player rather than let him get.
I don't hate that move. Listen. All right. I'm just going to say
He's
this
a
real quick.
weenie for that.
I don't blame him for actually doing that to Miguel Cabrera. You know, you play to win the game. It was still a 1-0 game at that point. You know, what do? Do you basically pitch to Miguel Cabrera because, you know, 2 runners on? Or do you go to the guy who has a sub 180 batting average, I believe he had? You know, you go with the guy mathematically that's going to be more likely to get you out of that with two outs already in the 8th inning. It's from a fan perspective, I see why they're pissed off. But as a player, as a coach, I think it's the right move. But we can always come back to that in due time.
I'm gonna go on a left turn here, and I'm gonna back Scott, and I'm gonna back the San Francisco Giants. Like, it is time. People talk about this game being boring. Well, go ahead, score some runs in the 9th inning. So I'm watching 3 hours in. Go ahead, hit the ball when you're up by something. Go ahead, send the guy, play the game. Look, we're gonna
pitch to Cabrera with a chance for 3,000.
No, we're gonna go to basketball in a minute. Keep your foot on their neck. I mean, and everyone knows it in basketball. Anytime you take your foot off, you see 20-point comebacks. Mm-hmm. Baseball should be the same way. You don't pitch to Miggy Cabrera, one of the only guys with 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. And then they threw in another stat. Oh, and he's the highest
300 batting average.
Of the greatest batting average of the 3 of them. And those other guys are Mays and Aaron. So, yeah, don't pitch to him. You don't pitch to him. That's fine. And play the game to win every inning of every game. And more fans will come just because they see people trying to win. And, yeah, I missed the 3,000th hit because that was the game I was at. Well, there was plenty of other games you could have had 2 hits at earlier, and then you would have been.
And don't forget, Cabrera went 0 for 3 leading up to that, too.
But it only takes the one.
It only takes the one, yes. So if we get time, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we can.
But I can almost see the drool like just coming off of Brandon's face right now. Let's just roll with it. Ben Simmons existed for the Brooklyn Nets, who are now actually out of the playoffs after getting swept by the Boston Celtics. He was, in fact, wearing practice jerseys. He was practicing occasional slam dunk and things like that. But he's been called out hardcore because of the fact that he missed the entire playoffs. And at the end of the day, did literally nothing for the team. Brandon, go for it.
Before we get to the Nets as a team overall, we're going to address the Simmons aspect of this first. This is so pathetic and borderline criminal what this man has pulled off. You go on weeks and weeks. Oh, I'm going to play. I'm not going to play. This game, that game. Maybe this game, maybe that game. Holding everybody in the air like some Jedi trick with the Force, just navigating everybody. Playing this whole series, you wait till the very last minute of game, the day of game 4 to be like, nah, I'm not gonna play. And then the Nets are like, oh, we're disappointed and surprised. Which, first of all, I don't know why you should be. This should have been 100% expected. And for the idea that we were going to think that Ben Simmons, whether he was actually legitimately injured or not, to come in from these practice 4-on-4 drills to immediate playoff intensity basketball against the best defensive team in the league right now is absurd. He's obviously he went to file this $21 million grievance. For what? For what? To sit on the bench? To wear all these crazy suits looking like a character out of Candyland? This was really pathetic. And you know what? I don't even have the words for this. There are so many teams in the league to bring the Nets into this, that if this were to happen under their watch, Simmons would not even be traded. He would have been cut. This is absolutely absurd. And then we can get into the Nets as a team against the Celtics. But this Simmons aspect is ridiculous. And to think that he is under contract for a few more years with the team, I can't justify going one more day with him on the roster.
But because of the guaranteed salary, it's impossible to cut him because you still eat it on the salary cap. So I don't remember any player that has done less for more money than Ben Simmons. He got $40 million this season to sit and do absolutely nothing for two teams. That's why I said right away when this trade was made, regardless of any on-court contributions from James Harden, that the Sixers won that trade. Why? Because they only have 1 year left of James Harden's contract as opposed to 3 more from this clown. Further proof of a long-standing point that I've had for years. Any professional athlete who comes in contact with the Kardashian and Jenner family, their career immediately goes down the toilet. There's a long list of them: Chris Humphries, Reggie Bush, heard of Tristan Thompson lately? Lamar Odom almost died.
Tristan Thompson still can't get out of the curse.
Right. So even when you break up with him, it still follows you. I wouldn't exactly. James Harden had the MVP streak for a while, but ultimately he is what he is. And these guys all have such ridiculous contract that there's only like 5 players in the league who can be traded for each other. That's why Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, John Wall, James Harden, Ben Simmons. That's why they keep getting traded for each other, because it's the only way the salary caps match. Now, the Sixers, at least, they got off and were able to make this trade. They were the ones that were dumb enough to give $160 million to a player who can't even hit a jump shot.
So
we won't even take a layup when it counts.
Okay, we are going to ream Simmons, and we can do that for hours. Then you're going to go after Kyrie, and we can do that for hours. But the reality here is, in the modern basketball world, there are people calling Kevin Durant the best basketball player in the NBA. They're calling him the best basketball player in the world. The problem is, in today's NBA and basketball world, if you're the best player on your team, you get to be the GM. And he is we can't use the word on this station, GM, in the NBA. He has 2 guys who don't want to play that he has handpicked or approved to have on his team, plus Harden, who barely wants to play. This we can talk about Simmons and whether he looks good looking like a clown or he can't pull off looking like a clown. All you want. We can talk about whether or not Kyrie did the right thing by standing up for his right not to get a shot or not. But give all due respect to LeBron James now when you start to compare him to the other greats. He played in a different era. I want this
Kevin Durant, LeBron shut down argument shut down for good. This is over.
Yes, because it's not just getting great players, because LeBron did it on 3 different franchises and won, and KD had to go to an established franchise. And let's face it, Green is the reason that team won. It's the reason that team wins. It's the reason that team might win again. It's Green. He holds it together. And I changed my opinion on Durant when he won when they won gold, but Green was on that team too. And he's the guy who gets in players' faces. He doesn't care who they are. He's like, yo, you play. I play a different level. I'm not superstar. I'm just great, and I am glue, and you will play. And the best player can't always be that way, but if you can't be that way, pick a right-hand man who can. Don't pick a flake and not pick on your team somebody who's going to hold them together if you can't do it. Know your weaknesses.
Right.
But it's also a fact that Kyrie Okay, Simmons doesn't want to play. This is very clear. Kyrie wants to play, but he is living in this somewhat multiverse, this MCU multiverse where he wants to be selective about where he plays. He wants to control the game. Not he wants to also, and you hear him how he's we as the Nets, we're going to go over this. Who's we? What, you're not going to do anything. The problem is Kyrie wants to be the GM. Kyrie wants to be what LeBron was, what a Kobe was, what Michael was. And that's not where he is.
He wouldn't even get the vaccine for half the season. That actually, which, yes, it's his
he's
right
delusional.
But the fact of the matter is, he made that choice, and it left his teammates holding the bag for over half the season.
And then on the
it's a bigger detriment to them than Simmons. They could have made that trade. Yes. Simmons never could have played, and had Kyrie gotten shot and played 65 games, they wouldn't have been seeded as poorly. They would have been gelled better, and they would have won the first round, probably the second round, depending upon what the matchups were.
All 4 of these games were winnable, and they couldn't win a single one of them. The inarguable best duo, best tandem in the playoffs couldn't win a single playoff game.
Look, after the first game, everyone said this is going to be the greatest series ever. Oh, this is going to be the greatest series ever. This was the worst series ever.
I thought it would be 7 games.
Yeah. Nope. One team went out and played basketball as a team with great players. Another team had superstars and didn't play as a team, and they lost because they thought it was high school.
But the problem with Kevin Durant and Kyrie is you have a Batman and a Robin, but Robin thinks he's Batman, and Batman has a Robin-style personality. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, there is nobody on that team to kick the butts of the other players on that team. Whoever that's what they need on that team. Iguodala would have been fine on that team. He's a guy who I look at and think can run a team. He doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to be a superstar. Yeah. They need anybody on that team. Look, Tony Parker, when he was with San Antonio, are you telling me that the big fundamental, my all-time favorite player, was controlling that team? No. Look at him now. You all know what he was doing when you see the way he looks now, Rasta man. But Kevin Parker did, and then let him, fundamental, play the way he plays. There's nobody on that team who's going to manage that team. And even if they're the coach like Spoels or even Riley,
they don't need a coach. Oh,
they don't have a coach. Steve Nash is an empty suit. So are most NBA coaches.
The coach can coach if the star lets them.
But Kyrie is the most uncoachable player in league history.
I don't know about
I think uncoachable great player in league history.
With what is expected from him and where his talent is and where his ceiling is, he absolutely is.
Look, he only played 6 games for Coach K. Was it even that many?
Maybe 10 at most.
I thought it was 11.
Yeah, okay. I think it was like 10. Yeah, it was 6, 10 or 11.
I had 11 stapled into my mind for that for some reason.
But he had a toe injury or something that year.
Yeah,
so he didn't play most of
Maybe it was 6 total tournament games from the ACC. Whatever it was. I like 11.
But let's go back to before COVID and any vaccine. He sat out in the bubble because of social injustices and this issue on that. I mean,
ask the Celtics how they felt about him as a team member.
The most entertaining thing about that series was Kyrie flipping off Celtics fans, and Kyrie thinks that he is so shocked that the fans in Boston don't like him. Yeah, he checked out of there
and
too.
Didn't play a lick of good basketball after that.
Between him, Harden, Simmons, this Nets team is some of the most toxic personalities in the NBA, all in one spot, and you wonder why they didn't win a single playoff game.
I've been saying this is the biggest powder keg in the league. Either it's going to be great or it's going to be a disaster, and there is no in between.
Now here's a question: not enough who's bigger disappointment, Lakers or Nets? Because the same applies to both teams.
There was not enough said about the middle fingers, not because it was offensive or rude or the fans deserve. When the fans get into a guy's head in game 1, that much. And then people go, this is going to be the greatest series. In game 1, he was flipping the bird like a lunatic. The fans were in his head. Forget Marcus Smart being in his head. The fans. I was surprised the fans didn't double down because I was like, oh, they're in his head. They live there. And there were people talking about, oh, this is the environment he wants. The environment he wants, he's flipping birds and losing games. I'll take him flipping birds and scoring 80 and losing all day. I would have doubled down if I was the fans in Boston. Let's not go as far as the most recent Yankee incident, but let's go ahead and let the boo birds fly, let the F-bombs go.
He didn't play a lick of good basketball after that. So
the Celtics fans are taking up more space in his head than anything else. Clearly, there isn't much else in there. Anything that Kyrie says.
They are in his, like, you're right. And it's like, if he's bringing Sage and flipping them off, they live there. That was the one team they in hindsight, that's the one team they definitely couldn't beat. Because the Celtics fans have set up shop in Kyrie Irving's head forever, which is going to matter when you trade for him. And then the Nets fans are going to live there too, because if they get rid of him, the Nets fans aren't going to forgive him either. The guy who wouldn't get the shot, missed half the season. Now, they're New Yorkers. They're not stupid. They've lived with the Knicks for a while. They thought they had something here.
And also, this is, as from the Celtics to Kyrie, this is one of the biggest FUs because Kyrie specifically said with these, especially with Tatum and Brown, how they couldn't win anything.
Yeah.
And they two guys that are still younger than I am beat Kyrie and KD, and it's just, the whole LeBron KD discussion needs to end. This I'm so done with them overall. This is all time embarrassing. And I said this to Ernesto, who is our resident Net fan. I don't think this trio lasts another 2 years together.
Please stop pointing out that there are NBA players that are younger than you, because they are all younger than the rest of us.
No, maybe not JD. Maybe a couple might be actually young. LeBron, I think, is actually older than JD, right?
He by a few months. We graduated from high school.
Still counts. It still counts.
You got Udonis Haslem in Miami, who's like 40.
Half the coaches 40. In the league are younger than you.
I'm still. I gotta put it into. I gotta keep it in perspective. I gotta be true. I'm just saying.
I'm pretty sure Spoelstra's younger than me and Scott. I think you're right.
Here's the thing: the sign that you're old is when, like JD said, is when the coaching staff and the managers are all younger than you are. Additionally also, the Cody Bellinger thing. I remember Clay Bellinger. I remember when he won World Series with the Yankees, and they would highlight that. Oh, his dad played with the Yankees, won a World Series. It's like, yeah, I remember that. It felt like last week, even though it was 3 years ago. That is the sign that you're getting old.
Here's mine. Is one of the top high school players in the country is New Jersey's own DJ Wagner of Camden. I remember his dad playing for Camden High School and Memphis in the NBA, only about 20 years ago. And his grandfather, Milt Wagner, was a great at Louisville and won a championship with the Lakers. So so keep an eye on them. They'd actually be the first 3-generation NBA family. If that pans out, as it looks like it will.
But
in 2 years, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they got 3-generation families in baseball. I think the Boone family is one of them, for example, on that. 4 generations, I'm sure, will be coming soon because baseball is a lot more generational.
Oh, just because it's all sports are. I mean, we are moments away from the third Manning in the NFL. Like, blink your eyes. 3 generations, one position, starting quarterback. That's and I don't know if there's 3 layers of Matthews, but there
are
4 layers outwise of Matthews.
How about the Watts? Brothers, but no parent though, but just the 3 of them though is still insane. The amount of trios and duos in the
Bosa brothers and their dad too, because their dad played in
the Bosas,
But like I said, in this case here, when you start seeing that 3rd and 4th generation, I think with the Mannings too, like I said, like you said, no pressure on Arch and who's the other one?
There's another one besides Arch?
I think there's another one coming up. Yeah.
I only know of Arch.
I've only heard Arch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eli has girls.
I'm on Arch alert.
Okay.
Yeah, not for the Jets. Not for the Jets. No. Just in general.
With what the Manning family has done to the Jets, I don't. They clearly the Manning family has been trolling the Jets for 25 years now.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, in fairness, the Giants do play in the same stadium as the Jets, and
Yeah.
For
well, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Peyton was the one who recommended that the Jets hire Adam Gase, which is now the looks like the ultimate troll job.
And Eli Manning was the one that recommended to Gettleman that they draft Daniel Jones. So
of course, I guess he's Eli's mini-me.
Plus, they also benched Eli for a former Jet in Geno.
Yeah,
and he
a little bit of a sting with that one as well.
I mean, I've always listened. I have nothing against Geno Smith. I wanted him to do well when he was in Seattle. He had a couple of good games over there. But yeah, if ever there was a BS move, and the worst BS move a team could ever have done, that's easily got to be up there. I'm going to guess at this point, and maybe I think you guys are seeing it, maybe we should talk about the NFL draft as we very, very subtly moved into the NFL at this point. We are all fans of respective teams that have, shall we say, we were in school in an NI for needs improvement. Obi, I think your Eagles, I think, probably arguably the best of the bunch here. But if you want to start off, if you want to otherwise defer, it's your call. Do you want to talk the Eagles? Do you want to talk the draft? And do you want to talk your team? Otherwise, we got two Jets fans that can roll.
I'm going to just go with I am excited about this draft because it's not a quarterback draft.
Mm-hmm.
Like the name of the guy you're going to be watching is probably in the green room fall is probably Thibodeau. But we're talking about a defensive end who's going to be falling, not a quarterback. And will somebody go crazy and trade up the top 6 for Malik? Is that going to I expect crazy things to happen because this is when it's not a quarterback heavy or in the early rounds, there are going to be differences of opinions on who is the pass rusher that fits into my team. Who is the offensive lineman that fits into my team? I think the Giants are going to win this draft. I think your Giants steal all the thunder. I think your Giants are either going to get two stud guys, either offensive and or defensive linemen, or one stud guy and be in position to have an extra draft pick next year when we are going to be talking about more quarterback heavy draft, possibly some other positions that are going to be strong. And then the late wide receivers. So those of us who are into fantasy football, like I am, especially dynasty fantasy football, you got 10-year contract in Kansas City, boy, drafting a quarterback, a wide receiver in the first round. That can affect things. And then, of course, you have whatever is left in Green Bay, with them probably drafting a wide receiver. So if you're into dynasty fantasy football, that second half of the draft, where those wide receivers land, who's going to be the unfortunate guy who goes to the Jets? It's probably going to be the most talented guy. But do you want him because he's on the Jets with a questionable quarterback and a history that these two guys are going to go into? Or do you want a guy who may have less talent but is sitting there getting thrown to by Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers from season 1? So with that, I didn't touch a bit on my Eagles. I'm not going to touch on the Eagles. I don't want to jinx my Eagles. And I'm going to hand it over to you guys.
All right. I want to let you guys roll as longtime suffering Jets fans. Brandon, I let you roll in the last one. JD, I'm going to turn it over to you first. Because right now the Jets are in solid position. They got 2 drafts right in the beginning of this. There is a lot of talk that maybe they're going to try and go after Deebo Samuel. A few options that exist there. First question for you: are you excited?
As a Jets fan, the draft is the only time where there's any real excitement. And this actually marks 1 year this week since my first episode on Sports Den, where I said before the draft last year on my first episode that I didn't expect Zach Wilson to amount to much because the Jets can't develop quarterbacks. 1 year out, I stand by that. We'll see if year 2 is any better. But both the Jets and the Giants happen to be lucky in the sense that they did trades last year for first round picks with teams that also stunk. So they ended up with 2 top 10 picks. The Giants at 5 and 7 and the Jets at 4 and 10. I expect that number 10 pick to end up as trade bait one way or another. Mm-hmm. If they trade that 10 pick for Deebo Samuel, sign me up. I'll take that in a heartbeat. Give me that 10 pick and a 4th rounder for Deebo. I could jump on with that. But there's 4 positions that the Jets need to address the most: offensive tackle, edge rusher, cornerback, wide receiver. So I think Hutchinson probably goes first to the Jaguars, but they could go for a lineman to try and protect Lawrence. That's another thing about a draft with no quarterbacks in the top 5, and really, honestly, none of these quarterbacks I think are first round talents. Yet Malik Willis shot up the draft boards, and he's being projected as possible top 10 pick now. Good luck with that. And I think Kenny Pickett will go to Pittsburgh in the middle of the round. But But you have Hutchinson, you have Charles Cross, the tackle from Mississippi State. There's a few offensive tackles that they could go with. I think they go best player available out of those 4. Thibodeau has been falling. If he falls to the Jets at 10, if he's still there at 10, I think they should take him. But probably more likely we're ending up with either we're looking at probably Evan Neal from Alabama or Ikem Ekwonu, apologies for butchering that name, from North Carolina State as the offensive lineman that they're looking at. But Travon Walker from Georgia, I've seen him all over the place. Everywhere he's now getting chatter as a possible number 1 pick. So if he's still there, I think the Jets might take him at 4. And the interesting dynamic here is for me and for the Jets at 4 is that if the Jets screw up at 4, and then the Giants take the stud that they passed up at 5, and he ends up being great for the Giants, that's going to haunt the Jets for years. Mm-hmm. But
Brandon,
and also same thing at 7 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you have Gardner from the cornerback from Cincinnati, possibly at 10 too.
I think with the first 2 picks, being 4 and 10, the first 4, for me, in my heart of heart, I have to go with the offensive line. I think if we're going into another year where if we're putting all our eggs in the Zach Wilson basket, we have to do everything we can to protect him. Obviously, it's been 1 year, but it's been an injury-riddled year. So I really think with the positions that are a lot, pretty sparsely available at the top, being offensive and defensive lines, I think there really isn't an excuse to be able to get someone that they love at number 4, because look, we're pretty much I'm gonna take quarterbacks. I don't care that any of these guys have been shot up maybe as a top 10 pick. I don't see that happening. I think this is one of the few off seasons. We'll still see where Baker ends up. I think this is one of the few off seasons where there isn't a tremendous need for quarterbacks. So teams need to take the opportunity to bang up some of their positions that they are weak in. And I think the Jets have to go, JD, you said it, offensive, defensive line, and wide receiver and cornerback. I think this Denzel Mims situation, I think that has been a bust. There was high hopes for him. We'll see what Elijah Moore, what he can do, but I still think you can grab a wide receiver in a later pick, in maybe a mid-round. I think you got to sew up the offensive defensive line in this first round specifically.
I don't understand why Mims is even on the team anymore, unless they plan on trading him. Either use him or trade him. And this draft is also a referendum on Joe Douglas, because the 2020 draft, his first draft, is already looking like already looking pathetic. Becton's a bust. In a draft full of wide receivers, they ended up with Denzel Mims, who's too dumb to read a playbook, but has the talent. And then last year, Vera Tucker was a solid pick, and we'll see about Wilson. But Becton, 2 years in, he's already a bust. Maybe they can salvage him by moving him to right tackle or guard or something. That's if he can even lose weight and get on the field. But I've been going back and forth on this the past few days, but because I wanted Thibodeau as at 4, but now I'm thinking that they should take one of those linemen if they're available. There's enough edge rushers in this draft that they can probably get one at 10. And if they don't find a player at 10 that they like, or they're down to just wide receivers, they could probably trade down for a team that's desperate enough to move up for a quarterback or some other position.
If there's any line that I'm more confident in over the other, it's the defensive line over the offensive line. So I think if you have to go with either a Klonu or Neal at 4, and you gotta with Zach Wilson, you gotta go all in on this, protect him, and that's got to be it. You can't have another situation where you guys. I am still a Sam Darnold fan. I know that ship is way sailed, but I really thought that maybe they could do something once they had gotten him and to sew up any offensive line, and we saw they didn't do that whatsoever. I don't think they can afford to do that again with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Darnold, is like every other thing for like most things from the Northeast has gone to it's where New York sends their mistakes to Carolina. In the form of Ben McAdoo and Sam Darnold. Good luck to both of them. As if we didn't already feel bad enough for Darnold with the
Ben McAdoo
doesn't know what he's talking about. Now he has to deal with Ben McAdoo as his offensive coordinator.
McAdoo.
Hope he's investing well.
Okay, so at this point, basically, Ben McAdoo aside. All right, I figure at this point, you guys have had your time as far as the Jets go. We're going to go to Obi in a minute as far as basically what he feels about his Eagles, and Fly Eagles Fly. There's a weird feeling in Giant Nation right now, and frankly, it's a feeling that we have not had for a lot of years. It's a foreign word that we're not familiar with. I believe the word is referred to as hope. This is a word that we have not had in many a year at this point. So unlike when Gettleman came in, unlike when various coaches came in and out, we're seeing right now in Giant Nation an opportunity and a hope because success was already built in Buffalo. Joe Schoen, who's now actually basically the GM of the Giants. So we're looking at that and crossing fingers skeptically, but hopefully that maybe for the first time in many years, the Giants will not be a laughingstock of the NFL. Their first question right now that exists in the next week is, do they decide to pick up the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones? I'm going to come out right now and say there's no way in Hiffle they're going to do that. Daniel Jones was a Gettleman deal. It is not a Schoen deal. Schoen is trying to build this team with his own legacy, with his own opinions, with his own belief. He inherited Daniel Jones, and there is no way in hell, Hiffle, whatever you want to say, you want to call it, that they are going to pick up a $22+ million deal on an average at best quarterback. The reason I think they got Tyrod Taylor as a 2-year deal is because they are already moving on from Daniel Jones, and they are using next year to help train, develop, coach, and mentor a new quarterback while you have Tyrod Taylor to show him the ropes. I think that's the way that they're trying to work this right now. The Giants, like you mentioned before, have 2 picks in the draft. They've got, right at the very beginning in this case. Credit to Gettleman in this case. He did make the smart move, and he did get the draft picks when they traded earlier when the Bears got Justin Fields. But I personally think it'd be entirely possible if Schoen ends up trading the number 7 pick and then actually starts to bring that down to maybe later on, possibly goes to San Francisco. They just basically, there's a lot of possibilities here. The Giants right now, they need an offensive line. They need an edge rusher. I think they're going to be smart. Again, I have a weird word here. I believe it's called hope. And as a Giants fan, and listen, you guys are Jets fans. You know what it feels like when you have no hope, and then suddenly you're like, maybe? I mean,
right. So that's where I break it. That's where I break out the line from the Shawshank Redemption of Morgan Freeman's character. That hope is a dangerous thing.
It is. Yeah.
Because
maybe you'll get large Pepsis for fan appreciation this year.
And I was going to say the line from Avatar: Last Airbender, hope is an illusion. But you know what? I've got it anyway. I'm excited because of the fact that finally this team may not completely be a laughingstock and effing suck. Will they be good next year? No. But could they trend upward? Maybe. Maybe it's much ado about nothing and end up, the team's a joke again. But for the short term right now, we have some degree of hope and faith that maybe something can trend upward. If he ends up doing something stupid with his draft picks, we're going to drop right back down again. But we're kind of like that person who keeps having really, really bad relationships. you're hurt from the past, you're hurt. And then you meet someone, you kind of have a little bit of faith, but you know all the pain that you've had in the past. I kind of feel that as a Giants fan, and I know you guys feel it as Jets fans. And for right now, what we have as the Buffalo Giants, maybe something could come from it. Maybe. If they're smart with it, again, you need the offensive line, edge rusher, sure, but I think O-line is more important. And I've always been high on Tyrod Taylor. I've always liked that guy. I don't think they get a quarterback this year. I think they get one next year, which is why they did Tyrod Taylor for 2 years. But we'll find out on Thursday. If he starts off basically the fourth pick in the draft, fifth pick in the draft, and he ends up signing a kicker, I'm going to sign off. I'm just going to basically, at that point, I think I'm just going to become a Jacksonville Jaguar fan. Screw it.
What is with you with these Florida teams? You just bail on up northeast, and you're let's go to the Magic. Let's just go to the Jaguars.
Because I have a
retirement plan.
Dude, I have no, actually not Florida. I have listen, I got a soft spot for really crummy teams. I'm a Devils fan. I'm a Giants fan. I'm fading on the Yankees. We can get to that one a little bit later. But
the Giants and the Devils have at least won in your multiple championships
each in his lifetime.
But
as have the Yankees.
That's rear view.
And the Yankees fans will whine because that it's not that they haven't reached the World Series, blaming a team that's cheating when they were cheating, when everybody's cheating, and then rather than admit that their team isn't that good.
I'm surprised when I said that my loyalty to the Yankees is fading. You guys didn't jump on that.
Yeah, well, because nobody believes the Yankee fan when they say their loyalty is fading. I mean, I was watching F1 in Italy. The guy was dressed all in red with his Ferrari stuff. I don't think he spoke a lick of English, and he was wearing a Yankee hat to go with it. So, yeah, nobody believes the Yankee fan when they say that they're fading.
You already jumped ship from the Mets to the Yankees, so it's possible.
Well, no, but see, that's because when I was a kid, I mean, all my favorite players are gone. It's really hard to be loyal to players when you don't understand the fact that they leave all the time.
And you know what? There's a meme on social media all the time. Boys pick their favorite team at 11 years old and stay faithful to them forever. And, it's kind of stupid. It is. Like, there's – I forgive Scott for leaving.
Dude, I get crap all the time from you don't change your team, But.
Yeah, you do. I just before I go talk about my Eagles here, I just went to a dinner with some folks who are from here down in South Jersey, and I've been here 20 years. Told the story of how I changed my teams, and he's like, "Yeah," and he was telling the story. The guy was wearing an Eagle shirt. Went in, the Sixer game was on. Obviously, a sports fan. He's like, "Yeah, but one thing I don't subscribe to is you gotta keep your team. You move, you keep your team if you like the team still. You don't like the team still, not your whatever. It flows, it changes." I was like, "This is an engaged, enlightened man." But I digress. I have to discuss the Eagles, this is such an interesting draft as an Eagle fan, because when the season was beginning in the middle of the season and the Eagles were garbage and Indy looked to be garbage, it looked like we were going to have 3 top 10 picks. And, that's what we were looking at and excited. And then we turned out to somehow make the playoffs, and Indy was the best team not to make the playoffs. And now you're sitting here picking in the middle of the draft. And the way this draft is set up, top heavy is top big guys. And then the bottom half of the draft, what looks to be happening is there's wide receivers and a decent number of guys to pick from, whether it be Olave or Williamson or Treylon Burks or whomever you think it is. So I'm guessing and feeling that the Eagles are going to pull Detroit Lions and pick 3 wide receivers in the first round 3 years in a row. The way that worked out for the Lions is the third guy was not just a charm. He was one of the greatest wide receivers ever to step foot on a field. And I'm going to cross my fingers that will happen for the Eagles as well, with whomever they pick. What's likely going to happen is that shortly thereafter, some team is going to trade up for a wide receiver, and that wide receiver will be the Justin Jefferson of this draft, and the Eagles will have missed and be sitting with another Jalen Reagor or J. Jaws or whomever. Not Devonta Smith, who I think has been greatly overlooked. How amazing, even the Eagle Nation.
He saved their bacon last year.
Yeah, Eagles fans keep talking about how Hurts has no weapons, and I would argue that Dallas Goedert and Devonta Smith are 2 great weapons at their positions. So a third one would be nice, but those 2 guys I think are great. With their second pick, depending upon how it falls out, probably a linebacker. You're talking 18th, the end of towards the the bottom half of the first round. That's probably not too early to reach for a middle linebacker to shore up the middle of that defense. You do have the potential to face Zeke twice a year. You do have the potential to face Barkley twice a year, and you do have Antonio Gibson. All three teams in that division look like they could have, if not be run first, running games that matter. So shoring up the middle of that defense with a linebacker who can kind of do two things is certainly going to be excellent. You're not going to find any studs at that point. But if the Eagles can just come away with two guys who are starters for 5 years in the first round, that'd be fantastic. And I think one of them is going to have to be a wide receiver, the team with Devonta Smith, the team with Dallas Goedert, and let's see what Jalen Hurts does. The problem is, if the guy works out, Jalen Hurts won't be bad enough to be in a position to get a good quarterback. The Eagles might be into signing free agent Baker Mayfield next year. Like, those are the kind of guys. Like, they're going to be
really
at home with Baker Mayfield. We'll have a new meeting now.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a problem at the quarterback position. Can he get better? This is the team that we're trying to hope is going to turn into the Buffalo Bills. A quarterback who can move, throw deep, and has no accuracy. Can you learn accuracy? I mean, Josh Allen was a freak that he could do that. That's not what happens in the NFL. You don't get more accurate. He has. I don't know if Jalen Hurts can do it. And hopefully another weapon will do that. I'm hoping for somebody with bigger arms than Olave, but everyone seems to be thinking Olave. And Olave did some nice things in a really good wide receiver room for 3 years in Ohio, 4 years in Ohio State. So that's what it looks like.
Okay, so we got about 12 minutes left at this point. Brandon, I know I just saw the message. I know you got to pop out. That's fine. You do what you got to do. Do you have anything you want to say first before we actually go to the next topic? I'll give you
I was going to say, you catch that Mets ninth inning last night?
I didn't, but I heard about it. Robin told me about it.
Woo! This was all time stuff.
Well, do tell, sir.
Okay, so they're down to 2 strikes, 2 outs in the top of the ninth. They're in St. Louis, and they have Canna up at the plate. And Canna hits a ball up the third base line, and Arenado fields it cleanly, but I don't know if there was he couldn't get the grip on it or whatever, but he took way too many steps and completely overthrew first base with Jankowski on base, so he was able to come around to all the way from second on that point and score to make it 2-1. And then Jeff McNeil comes up, he gets on base. Or at that point, no. It was. See, I'm still on cloud 9 from that inning. I'm still flustered. But they had a string of hits, a couple of hits, a double from McNeil to tie it up, and then Dom Smith with this crazy liner up the first base line, hustling. Pitcher hesitated on the run, couldn't get over in time, and McNeil comes around to able to score the third run to go up 3-2. Nimmo just puts the ribbon on top with a 2-run homer after that, winning 5-2. It was one of these moments where teams in the past, maybe not so much the World Series year after the trade, after Cespedes and stuff like that, maybe that team could have inched out this win. But these previous years, teams, I don't think would have even come close. I think that it just would have been 2-0 strikeout, and we go home and wait for tonight's game. But this team is really, really exciting. Any complaints are kind of almost nitpicks at this point. I would, some of these bullpen guys, some of these moments I wish could be better, but the starting pitching has been absolute lights out. Fielding has been great. Pete Alonso, look up on a Gold Glove alert this year. He's have phenomenal defense at first base this year. Also think he's going to be a 3-time home run derby champ. Watch out for this year. But other than that, this really feels, with Buck at the helm, this really feels like a legitimately good baseball team. And I'm every night I'm like, drooling at the mouth, waiting for first pitch. And I haven't felt like that in years.
This feels, and I think
still April.
But this has feelings that
I am going to sign off for you guys.
That's fine. Thank you, man. Cheers.
Enjoy your night, guys. I'll be back on later. Gotcha.
Sounds good. So, the Mets have a feeling right now of what 1986 kind of was. It has that same energy, that same vibe, but I think it has a better off the field, team. the 1986 team was a team that had a lot of internal struggles, the cocaine aspect of it, a lot of the issues that were existing there. There was a book written about why the Mets were the wrong team to win the World Series that year. And this team has the dynamic of what the 86 team does without that baggage. And I think that's what makes them more special this year than back then. Obi's looking at me very puzzled.
Well, you and I lived through that. And the 86 team came in with huge expectations after coming close in 84, choking towards the end, coming real close in 85 with Dwight Gooden having that unreal year. There was expectations of building something coming to a completion in 86. From the moment that season started, Strawberry and Gooden were going to take us to the promised land, and Carter and Hernandez were going to keep those two guys doing it the right way. Now, that's not what happened in hindsight, but like that was a team that it was built and it was exciting. Now, this year, the pitching staff was very exciting, although DeGrom can't get out there. But like that was a building and a building and a building to greatness. This feels more, honestly, like, I don't know what this feels like yet. It feels
it's
like
April. We don't know anything. Yeah. I've seen how many times have we seen the Mets do well for the first month or two of the season and then just completely bottom out in June and July, and then you don't hear.
I said something
2 or 3 years ago they were like 17-2. I had done the math.
Right.
They had to go they had to go like 6 games under 500 for the rest of the season after to not win 90, and they ended up losing having a losing record. So this is just the beginning. Although I do like the little things, like that stolen base play. Like that shows that there's somebody there who's like coaching them.
Especially the Mets, since the Mets have had awful base running for as long as I can remember. That's gone across numerous managers. It's some kind of cloud against them that they immediately forget how to run the bases. So for them to actually have good, smart base running plays is different. So that is helpful. It's baseball in April. And we've, as Obi said, a few years ago, they were like 17-2 in April and still had a losing record that year. So none of this means anything to me. Call me at the All-Star break.
And that's understandable. Basically, it's Mets anxiety disorder, MAD. That's a normal skepticism that Mets fans have, and I understand that.
Look, already we lost Conforto for the year. DeGrom has, maybe making improvements to come back.
But you have the record you have without DeGrom.
Yes.
So
that might be the record until playoffs come and you got one pitcher who's old.
I don't know. Like I said, I sense a good energy from this team. They have the biggest lead in Major League Baseball of any division leader right now. Which again, it's still April, but I think Mets fans.
April.
I know it's April.
Stop jinxing us, Scott. Let's talk about the Yankees.
Okay. Fine. Let's go.
Brandon compared the Yankees to a law firm. When was the last time you saw lawyers throw stuff after a case they won?
I don't know. Solino and Barnes.
That was my exact thought when I saw that. Brandon's like, when I go to a Yankee game, it's like going to a corporate meeting. What corporate meeting were you at?
By the way, that video is actually picking up steam again. After what happened with the Yankees, that one video that I forgot to tell him that, it's starting to pick up steam on YouTube because of the fact that I think a lot of average fans who are just indifferent to Yankee Nation are now pissed with Yankee Nation. I think
there's never been indifference regarding Yankees.
There's been a couple of fans. Listen, there's been a couple of fans. You have to admit, there's a couple of fans out there. Maybe in like the NL West, AL West, who are just kind of they're just like, okay, they're there. But I mean, the Yankees.
Yeah, the team that there's literally a play called "Damn Yankees" about. Yeah,
I know. My voice just popped an octave there. So
As I've said before, the history of the baseball is the history of the Yankees. I don't think there's indifference towards the Yankees anywhere in Major League Baseball. I think that's like saying I think that's like saying there's a basketball fan who's indifferent to the Lakers. Like, no, I'm usually rooting against the Lakers because I'm not a Laker fan.
That is
Yankee
a question
fans,
for
Cowboys fans, Lakers fans, Notre Dame football fans, Duke basketball fans. They're all the same obnoxious front runners that you don't want.
That is a question to throw out to Twitter. I think I'm going to do that. So, or Obi, if you want to handle either one of us well. But
I am unavailable tonight because I have some stuff. I mean, I know you got stuff too, but I got stuff right up until I have you again.
100%. I mean, we got about 4 minutes left at this point. So I do want to go into this because, as a Yankee fan who's, yes, I will admit my loyalties to the Yankees have faded over the past couple of years. I'm not going to argue that. This is not George's team. I've mentioned this before. This is Hal's team. You see a lot of times with, I'm going to use a corporation as an example. The guy who built the company retires. The son takes over and it is run differently. It has a different mindset, different mentality. That is quite literally, this is the same thing I started to feel back in 2009. They won the World Series in 2009. But even then, when I saw Hal taking over, I saw certain things being done that just didn't feel, I mean, listen, nothing can be George-like. Let's call it what it is. George Steinbrenner was George Steinbrenner. But it had a different vibe. The stadium had a different vibe. And, I know Brandon.
I'm going to interrupt you here. I agree with you. As a Yankee hater, they are harder to hate. I do not like the Yankees not buying the best player every year. I don't like the Dodgers beating them out for Freddie Freeman. I don't like that. I want to hate the Yankees. And if it was up to me, I'd be like, get Jerry Jones in here. Just get a new owner. I agree with you 100%. I don't know how it feels to be a fan of the Yankees. I know how it feels to be a hater of the Yankees. And I want the evil empire. I think that's good for baseball. I don't care what anybody says. And so on board 100%, this isn't Yankee ownership. This isn't George Steinbrenner getting exactly who he wants. But I know we're cut for time, and I know that JD has some good stuff to actually finish up with. So
go ahead, sir.
I'm going to let JD take it away with some happy stuff.
Yeah, just before the end of the show, I wanted to acknowledge rest in peace to Mike Bossy and Guy Lafleur, two hockey legends from the 70s and 80s. Lafleur won, I believe, 5 or 6 Stanley Cups total, including 4 in a row with Montreal in the late 70s, and Mike Bossy with another 4 in a row right after that with the Islanders in the 80s. He scored over 500 goals in only 10 seasons playing. Mm-hmm. But because of all of the other because they were sandwiched between the Montreal dynasties of the 70s and the Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Edmonton dynasties of the 80s, they were not really. I think that the Islanders and Bossy didn't really get the respect that they deserved in hockey history. But two absolute legends, both of whom passed way too young last week.
Yeah, and I'm old enough. I remember that Islander team back then too, and and it's
19 consecutive playoff series victories. A record which will probably never be broken in modern sports.
Very possibly no.
Because they also made the finals the 5th year and lost to Edmonton.
Which is a literal passing of the torch, if you want to call it that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to wrap this up. Perhaps next week I will go into my diatribe about the Yankees and what happened then. But all in its own due time, I'm not worried there. 7:00 tonight, we are going to be talking on Tales from the Film Set about 2 specific topics. We're going to be talking about Multiverse of Madness and basically the new trailer on that. We're going to be breaking that down and discussing that. And then we're also going to be talking a little bit about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. In my personal experience with my first wife and the domestic violence I dealt with, I have a very, very unique perspective on this. So I'm going to be using that as a little bit of a window to kind of talk about my experiences on that. And frankly, what's happening to me now as people are reaching out to me for the first time. So if you want to call it basically on a very special episode of Tales from the Film Set, to use like the 90s reference in this case, we're going to be talking about those 2 primary topics there. We may be talking a little bit more about some cartoons we got coming up, so we're not going to be all dark and moody. But that'll be 7:00 tonight. By all means, drop us a message on that. This is also Spanglish World Network, Spanglish Sports World, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. I'm Scott Churchson, Mr. Obi Spencer, Mr. JD Walker, and of course, Mr. Brandon Kaye, who's come, gone, and wet, and we appreciated his time. But thank you as always. I appreciate it. And you guys stay awesome.